1 through 6. Going that way? Going that way? The twisties are just a hoot. I'm a contender. I'm a contender. Hey boys and girls, another episode of Commander Revs. Out doing a couple of twisties here with my good buddy Matt. And we are backtracking right now because I lost one of my cameras. I had a camera mounted right here. Foolishly with a, there's the Wheelie man right there. Foolishly with a suction cup. I have not gotten a ram mount for this bike yet. So I, in poor judgment, thought I would try the suction cup thing. It seemed pretty secure when I started, but we lost her, so I'm down a GoPro camera and a case. So be it. We're pressing on. That was my secondary camera anyway, so. So yeah, we're in the southwestern portion of, just outside the southwest suburbs of the Twin Cities. Kind of repeating a ride that Matt took earlier in the week with 650E. If any of you guys follow his channel, he was delivering one of his builds out here in the Twin Cities, so everybody on social media kind of found out where they were meeting and they put a ride together, so we're kind of repeating that ride right now. This is the first outing with the new CRG bar and mirrors. I really like them, and as I suspected, the surface area being a much smaller, they're not quite as easy to use. I mean, it's just not quite as much visibility, but boy, it really cleaned up the top of the bike. The whole thing just looks like it's sitting down lower now because those big gnarly mirrors aren't hanging up off the top here. So yeah, loving the look, and they're functional, they work. I can't see my camera. I used to always lean in to see if my camera was blinking in the right mode, and I can't do that anymore, but that's all good. Just have to work around that. But so yeah, I've got a little over 1,000 miles on this thing now. Kind of want to do a little bit of a 2-month ownership, 1,000 miles worth of ownership review on this now that I've had it for a little while. Bottom line is I'm still totally digging this thing, man. This bike is just a riot to ride. I don't think I'd ever get sick of riding this thing. This engine is just a hoot. So what do I think of this thing after 1,000 miles? That sign right there is still like what the guy needs to find as much as possible. This bike is a major hoot in the twisties. Yeah, the boys found a nice route here for Eve to tear up. So this bike is all about the engine. That's what I said when I bought it, and it's still true. A couple of things I don't like about the bike is everyone is right when they talk about this little joystick. It is really almost impossible between that and the small font of the things that controls. It's the trip odometers, the odometer, the fuel computer and all that stuff, average mileage and all that stuff. That's the stuff that button controls while you're riding the bike. And most of that stuff is not necessarily something you have to be accessing while you're riding. It's not important stuff like mode changes. So you can be, so when the bike has to be stopped in order to change modes. And for the ABS, for the suspension, and that kind of stuff. So I mean, you have to be stopped for the other things that this controls other than odometers. The race, sport, and track mode, that's through the start button, and you can do that anytime. And the traction control is through this paddle right here, forward and back, forward, up and down. So all that stuff's controllable while you're riding. So the stuff that you need to control with this button that is while you're riding is, like I said, the odometer stuff, and that's just not that important. So like I said, you have to be stopped to do other things with this button. So the cumbersomeness of that button is no big deal because you're stopped. So yeah, it could be better, but not a deal breaker, obviously. I talked about the twitchiness of the throttle down low when you're riding slow and you're just kind of putzing. So when you're just putzing along, this twitchiness in the throttle, that down at the bottom of the throttle position is something I kind of noticed when I first rode the bike. I absolutely have no awareness of it whatsoever. Like I said when I bought the bike, I think I mentioned if a guy owned this bike, I don't think you would even notice that, and I don't. It's just a characteristic of this particular engine and fuel mapping and fuel control and the fuel injection unit. So once, like I said, you own the bike, you're used to it, don't even notice that. Riding position on this thing is pretty much what, like I had talked about. From the waist down, this is like a super sport bike, and from the waist up, it's a super naked. I like the handlebars rather than the clip-ons. It's just a better fit for me. I think I'm just too old to be hanging down on my wrists all the time. It is a more upright position, but it is still very much tucked. But it's a good compromise. I did want that compromise between the sport and the naked. And this bike, both the styling, the riding position, the mid-range torque on it is that. So I'm repeating some of the things that I said when I bought this bike on, I think it was part 1 or 2 of my test ride on this bike. But I'm just reiterating that the stuff I thought I was going to like, I do. And the stuff I kind of thought I wasn't going to like, well, I don't so much. So not much has changed. One thing I have discovered more and more, even as I've gotten more comfortable on this bike, is the amazing corner ability of this bike. It is, like I said, I think the Öhlins is making me look like I'm a better rider than I am. I don't know what else it is. The tires, the Öhlins, the super corset tires, the Öhlins suspension, possibly the handlebars. Maybe it's a better fit for me. When I was leaned over all the time, maybe I just didn't feel I could get as aggressive as I can on this thing. I mean, I just am carving corners with this thing, keeping up with this guy ahead of me who's been on a sports bike his whole life, 20 years younger than me, and he's a good rider. And yeah, there are times when I can't keep up with him, but I do my best, and I hold my own with him, and I could couldn't really do that on my double R. I kind of felt like he was always leaving me in the dust on the corners, and now I'm at least contender. I'm a contender. I'm a contender.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody instead of a bum.
Anyway, yeah, I'm having a ball on this thing. The twisties are just a hoot. And what this is not a negative, because it's an absolute positive for the bike, but it can be viewed as a negative for me because I'm an idiot. Is that I was hoping the mid-range power, as opposed to all that top-end power, would keep me riding more like an adult. But I tell you, I think it's just not true. This thing just begs me to be a hooligan just as bad, if maybe worse than the double R. Now, I was just talking to a friend of mine about this, and I was saying I didn't go into those insane speeds, high-end power band on the double R as often, but when I did, it was like, yikes. This thing, I'm not up there to the very top as often, but I'm near it, and I'm in the mid-range going up to it so much more often because that mid-range power is just so much fun. And that's why I bought the bike. I'm not saying that's a negative. It's a total positive. That's why I bought the bike, and I love that quality of this bike. I love the mid-range power, but it hasn't matured me as far as being a hooligan, and I was kind of hoping maybe it would dial me in a little bit, but it hasn't. And that is a tribute to the bike, not a criticism. So, but for me, wow, it kind of isn't helping me out at all there in that area. But that's my problem, not the bike. The quick shifter. Let's talk quick shifter. It's phenomenal. It's smooth as butter, and it never misses a gear. I miss a gear once in a while trying to play with the clutch myself, but yeah, the quick shifter never misses. It's dialed in. So transmission engine combination with the quick shifter pretty much can't be beat. I did put the Krapovich aftermarket can on this. I did the Euro 4 compliant version. It still has the catalytic converter, and it's not crazy loud, but it just has a little bit more of a grunty, growl, throaty character. Keep going or take a break? Going that way? Going that way? So what the heck is it Matt is riding? Well, he's got a KTM 1190 Adventure he's owned for several years. So he just picked this one up a couple months ago, spring of 19 here. 1190 RC8. Aren't too many of those around. He's all cool on that thing now. That's Captain Darty. He's got a channel. You can look him up. He's got some good adventure riding videos. That's a cool looking bike. It's got a Ninja as well. That RC8's cool, man. I had never heard of one before he got that thing. I was like, wow, I didn't even know KTM made a sports super sports bike. But yeah, that thing's cool. I've ridden it. It's comfortable. It's grunty and torquey as all get out, of course, because it's got that 1190 engine there. Twisty, twisty. Nice. Matt's doing wheelies again. I still have my wheelie control on, so I'm not comfortable with this thing doing wheelies quite yet. I've tried a couple little ones. The short wheelbase is just kind of scary for an old fart like me, so not get too crazy with the wheelies. So to be fair, what I had said earlier, I'm keeping up with Matt better on this bike. One thing to be fair is that he is still new on that bike. Relatively, he's still dialing that in, so I'm sure he could still hand me my butt cheeks when it came down to it. But he grew up on a Ninja, and I'm kind of new to the sports bike genre. And I'm 20 years older than him, so come on, cut me some slack, man. Something too I've mentioned in the initial video was the subtle differences between the braking, engine braking that the three engine modes give you. Sport would be the most engine braking, race is the next least, and then track is the least amount of engine braking. And I have noticed got a little bit dialed in on that now. At high RPMs is when you really notice the difference, and I've got a little more time on the bike now, so I am starting to pick up on that subtle difference. And yeah, so it's just kind of nice to be able to be honest with you, I have not read up enough yet to know what the engine mapping difference is, if there's a throttle response change, is there a limit to the fueling at all in those different modes. My initial understanding is that it's not, that it really is just this engine braking thing, but I kind of almost have to say from the experience of riding this bike that there is a little bit more throttle response in sport. I have not played around on track too much. I'm sorry, in race. I started out the first few 100 miles in sport, and I've been in race now for the last 5, 6, 7, 800 miles for the most part. Playing a little bit in track, but mostly in race. And I think there's more throttle response in race. And I don't know if there's even more in track. I have not played around with track enough, but so I apologize for my ignorance on that. But the engine braking feature of these three modes, yeah, it's there. And again, when you're just farting around at semi-normal speeds, you're probably not going to see much of a difference. But when you're kind of getting on it and getting aggressive, there's definitely, when you roll off the throttle in race compared to in sport, there's just, that engine braking's just not there like it is in sport. And like I said, even more so in track, but I've got limited experience in track so far with this thing. Maybe the next video I'll have a little more time in track and I can report my findings on that. The cornering on this thing is still just amazes me. Like I said, is it the tires? Is it the Olins? Is it the setup? Just the frame, the rigidness, all of it comes together. Just makes for an exceptionally capable bike in the corners. Look at that. He's got the shift pattern there, 1 through 6, with N there for neutral. Huh?
It's a rheostat.
A rheostat, Matt says. Nice. 1 through 6. Lake Minnetonka. Perfect day for being out on a boat today, for sure. I think we're 90-ish. Mostly sunny. Okay, so Matt and I have parted ways. I'm heading home. It's about all I can think of right now for an update to the quality of the bike that I like and the ones that I maybe don't like so much. Little post-initial review. So a pretty short ownership review, but after having 1,000 miles on her. Anyway, yeah, that's gonna wrap it up. Tell you what, I'll see you in the garage. There might be just 1 or 2 more things I might want to share with you once we get back to the garage. So we'll see you there. Okay, so that pretty much wraps up the 1,000-mile, 2-month ownership review of the 2019 Aprilia V4 Tuono 1100 factory. This baby is a hoot. I'm really loving it. Love the bar end mirrors. I'm already getting used to the smaller surface area on the mirrors, so that's going to work out good. Like I said, I can't see my camera modes in the mirror very well without pulling over, but that's fine. It's probably better anyway. It's safer. I did want to talk about, today was really hot, man. I wear leathers. They're perforated leathers, but today was 90 with humidity. This engine, this frame right here acts like a heat sink to the engine. It really does get hot. With the leathers, it's not horrible, but if you were wearing jeans or anything less than leathers, you would really feel that a lot. I mean, this is all heavy-duty cast aluminum frame right here, milled aluminum. And yeah, it does. It's like resting up against the cylinder head. It's that hot. So, but on a hot day like today, even with my leathers, yeah, I noticed it, but it wasn't a deal breaker. But boy, yeah, it was a fun day out. Got some twisties in, and just still enjoying this bike. So that was about the only other thing I wanted to mention. Just wanted to say thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.